Hey guys, we're gonna read chapter 19. Didn't you love that cliffhanger at the end of chapter 18? Oh my gosh, half of their food is gone because of a bear. Oh, yeah, like what I said in the other video, when you think it's going really good for Raymond and Gabe, something else comes along and ruins it. Ugh, I feel so bad for them. Alright, let's see how they navigate through this, alright? Chapter 19. A winter bear, Raymond said, his voice hushed and awed. The length and the width of the tracks had my heart beating with thunder. My first thought was that we had no shells left for the rifle. I looked between the trees, expecting at any moment to see the monster that made the tracks. What's a winter bear? I whispered. A polar bear? Grizzly, he said quietly, looking over his shoulder. Probably a big male from the size of these prints. But why isn't it hibernating? It didn't put on enough fat to hibernate. Maybe there was a bad berry crop, or its teeth are too worn down. In frustration, I kicked at one of the cache's broken stilts. Like the other two legs, they had originally been living trees sawed off to support the cache. They looked sound from the outside, but inside they were rotten. Raymond dropped his outer mitts and went around the toboggan, undoing our slip knots. All the while he was glancing over his shoulder, which struck me with even more terror in my heart. We better hurry, he said. Get our things into the cabin and figure out what to do with this meat. Bears can smell anything. It could come back. We threw our things inside the cabin, plus the last of the firewood, enough to get us by when night fell. All the while, we were watching over our shoulders. Keep watching, Raymond warned. Bears move quiet. You probably won't hear it coming. Now we turned to the meat on the toboggan. How to protect it now that the cache was down on the ground. On top of the cabin, I wondered. Not high enough, and the roof might cave in if the bear gets up there. Hang pieces of it from tree branches? Ravens and camp robbers would get it. I stood there, stamping my feet and smacking my mitts together. There was nothing left between my ears but ice. As in, he couldn't think. It's like there was not even a brain in between his ears. Then Raymond thought of the solution. Put the toboggan up in a tree across several branches. Tie it down, repack it, cover it with a tarp and branches so the birds couldn't get at it. Easier said than done at 50 degrees below zero, but what choice did we have? With only the axe for protection, we went to get the ladder, upright in a tight cluster of spruces where I'd left it. Then we scouted all around the cabin in widening circles, searching for the right tree. Finally, we found one barely back from the bank of the Nahanni, across from the stretch of water that even now remained open, which at 50 degrees below zero, there's still flowing water. That's really strange, and that's why they keep mentioning it. It was a giant spruce standing all by itself several hundred yards from the protection of the cabin. Our ladder reached its lowest limbs at about the 13-foot level. At that point, two substantial branches poked out from the trunk about 5 feet apart, just what we needed to support the toboggan. Back at the cabin, Raymond said we should pack both army boxes with meat before we sledded the rest to our new cache. Just in case, he said. You've got a head on your shoulders, I told him. Mine froze off a couple of days ago. So let's get going while mine is still attached. I couldn't help laughing at our insanely desperate situation. Welcome back to the Valley of Headless Men, eh? With the axe, we hacked the meat into shapes we could cram into the army boxes, then fastened the lids down and left the boxes outside the cabin door. After that, we sledded the toboggan to the tree, looking all around for the bear in the twilight. It was impossible to shake the sensation that we were being watched. Whatever you do, Raymond whispered, don't turn your back on one of those bears. Don't run, or it'll chase you. Talk to it. Talk to it? Talk to it nice. Let it know what you are. Don't look it in the eye. Don't get it mad. the axe handy? Because that's all we've got. Suddenly, I felt sick through and through. I left it at the cabin, I confessed. Should I go get it? Let's just get the meat up in the tree. The canopy of the spruce's branches had shed the snow so effectively that the ground was bare below it, making for a good staging area. Raymond went up the ladder first and stood on the branch. I was working the empty toboggan up as he pulled from above. We muscled the toboggan into the tree, and Raymond worked it across the two big branches. I went halfway up and handed him the tarp. Then I went back down for the first piece of meat. Too late, Raymond whispered. What do you mean? Look out on the river. I couldn't see anything. Quit joking, I said. It's coming for us. I still couldn't see anything. Get up here! Now I could see the bear, huge and silver, soundlessly crossing the river ice, more like a ghost bear than a flesh and blood creature. I recognized the big hump over the shoulders, yet this apparition looked nothing like my conception of a grizzly. This bear looked as if it had been carved from crystal. Then I realized that its fur was entirely armored in ice, giving it this ghost-like appearance. The bear had gotten into open water, and now its fur was draped with hundreds of daggers of ice. My heart was in my throat as it paused, lifting its nose, taking the scent of the frozen moose meat, and maybe me. Get up here! I grabbed a piece of moose meat and climbed up the ladder. I handed the meat to Raymond, then joined him on the branch. When I turned around to look, the bear rose over the top of the riverbank, paused to sniff the air again, and kept coming. Holy cow, I muttered. Halfway to the tree, the bear stood on two legs and woofed several times, looking all around. I had serious doubts, trying to gauge the standing height of the bear, about our safety on this limb. I looked up into the tree. We could scramble to higher branches if we had to. For a moment, the bear went down on all fours, then back on hind legs again, roaring a challenge that could have knocked trees down. He smells us, Raymond whispered. Now the bear came on cautiously to the meat and hung its head low, growling like a dog over a bone. We could see every icicle clinging to its fur. I thought the bear might not be aware of us after all, but suddenly it swung away from the meat, stood on two hind legs again, and looked right up at us, roaring horribly. We tried to pull up the ladder, but we couldn't budge it from where we were crouching. Should I knock it over? We need it to get down. He can't come up it anyway. He's too heavy. We looked back down only to see the bear, all glistening with ice, moving closer yet. Then the bear stood to its full height against the ladder just below us and began to climb it. I rose, reaching for the next limb above me. When a couple of rungs broke beneath its